Viability, 10 out of 5. I would use this on every fucking build. Alright, so we're going to go over the Diablo clone gear because it's big, and we're going to talk about it. So in Season 2, the development team decided to add incredibly rare chase items to the Diablo clone fight. So not only did they make Diablo clone harder, more systematically and technically difficult, but they also gave us an additional benefit. Basically a 1 in 300 chance of finding an item when you kill Diablo clone on top of the Annihilus charm. These were an armor, boots, helmet, one-handed sword, and a claw. The first item that we're looking at is the Dark Abyss lacquered plate. So high defense right off the bat, right? Rolls between 1200 to 2000 defense, which is nice for people who care about that. Required level 85, big strength requirement because it's a lacquered plate, but you know, it has some stats for that. Plus 2 to all skills, 50 faster cast rate, enhanced defense, potential for big cold res, a huge -2 fire res, which I think is super cool. I love that. Mana after each kill, life after each kill, minus requirements. So, what are we looking at here? People are just going to see the fact that it's plus 2 all skills and 50 faster cast rate. And if you just stop there, you honestly wouldn't be that wrong. An incredible piece. You know, what can you liken this to? This is like Viper Magi without the res, but strictly better. So this can get 3 to all skills, right? A 3 to all skills armor with 50 faster cast rate. If that's all it said, this would be bonkers. If those were literally the only 2 stats on it, plus 2 all skills, 50 FCR, big defense, have a fun time. The mana per kill and the life per kill, along with the fact that it makes you ask the question between fire res and cold res, right? The only analog that we have for this is Indariel's Visage, which gives you huge minus to fire res, is a cool dynamic. Typically on a lot of high-end builds like Chains of Honor, right? You're getting the plus 2 all skills and you're getting all res, but this is also giving you 50 faster cast rate. An amazing piece. Plus 2 all skills, 50 FCR with life and mana per kill. Means that a couple other pieces of gear where people might have been wearing like silk weaves on a caster because they're having to deal with mana per kill, but they need to run infinity, right? The survivability per kill is a really, really nice touch. Decreases potion economy, allows builds that are really mana intensive to stay mana intensive. 50 faster cast rate on your chest armor alone means that you can run a +4 skill amulet. It means that you can go for +1 skill on your weapon rather than FCR. It means that you can go for +1 skill on your shield rather than FCR. It means that you can use skill rings and then get them slammed without FCR. This means that you can go for a different type of slam on your arachnid mesh. You could possibly forego even using Trang's gloves or, you know, Mage Fist, whichever one you were going to use. And maybe you're using like high survivability gloves in that slot instead. Having 50 FCR on this piece as well means that when you're magic finding, you can replace more pieces of your gear with magic find and plus to skill, rather than having to worry about FCR as much. So you may not be hitting your max breakpoint, but maybe you're 1 breakpoint below it, but able to run a lot more magic find. This armor has a lot of different places where it can fit into a build, where you can use it. So I'd say 4 out of 5 interesting. Balance, I think 5 out of 5. I think 5 out of 5. You have to make some choices here. And really at the end of the day, all you're getting is skills and FCR on caster builds. And sometimes that isn't enough. So you do have to think about the rest of your gear. And then viability, 5 out of 5. You could put those on so many builds and it would be good. So 4, 5, 5. Itherael's Path. Very nice. So we're looking at mirrored boots. Again, high strength requirement, 85 required. Defense, we don't know kick damage yet. I'm pretty sure kick damage should just be the mirror boot base. I don't know why question mark is here. These are faster run walk, faster cast rate, dex vitality. Let's talk about them. They are interesting because they're boots that say faster cast rate. Now, I don't know how your boots make you cast faster, unless you're like a dance mage, and you gotta like two-step to hit your next breakpoint. It's interesting that they are boots with 20 FCR. Again, this helps to move the FCR requirement off of slams, from your rings, from your weapon, from your circlet, from your amulet. Lets you wear more power on just about every caster build except for some summoners and for shadow disciplines. You can't get plus skills on your boots, so straight casters are just looking for stats and res most of the time. And if you could say, hey, your boots have 20 FCR on them, that helps to open up a lot of slots. Now, what else do the boots say? So they say dex and vitality. So more life and more dex. Dex gets you up to max block easier. I'm a little bit confused with these boots. And I feel like the reason why the boots just say dex vitality is because these boots literally say, hey, here are some stats to help buff you out so that you can wear other stuff. And in that case, they're fully functional. And if I were trying to balance an item like this, how do you balance FCR on boots, a stat we've never seen before? The answer is, it's probably pretty friggin' hard. I bet you these boots said other things, and I assume they have toned them back. I don't know where I would slot these in as the best boots on a build. Let's think about it. Hitting max FCR on Barbarian, a lightning build, technically hammered in. I feel like these are missing something that makes me say, I see how this is better than the alternatives. If they were base 50% run walk, if they said plus 10 all stats, if they said magic resistance, like percentile magic resistance, I feel like this is missing one more thing to seriously have me consider using this on most builds that aren't trying to hit a 200 plus FCR breakpoint. So interesting, I give these a 2 for interesting. It's interesting that has faster cast rate. That I don't think that's enough to make it an interesting piece. Viability, I think you have to give it like a 4 in viability. Again, without these boots, some of those max FCR breakpoint builds are kind of impossible to realistically do without sacrificing a lot. And then balance, I can already imagine how hard it is to balance faster cast rate on a piece of gear that should never have it in this game. I don't feel like the faster run walk, the dex, and the vitality are enough to not use other boots on most builds instead of these. And it's not like these items are supposed to just replace other pieces. In my mind, they're supposed to be competitive and powerful. And I feel like we're missing the mark a little bit on these boots. Sick name though. Overlord's Helm, about 600 to 800 defense, 142 strength required, level 85. This says, high variable life stolen per hit, mid variable minus enemy physical resistance, big plus to defense, strength, dex, vitality, minus 30 energy. I think there's only one other item in Diablo 2 that has minus 2 mana. So obviously this is really only an option for characters that deal physical damage. Big enemy physical resistance reduction. We've been playing around a lot with minus enemy physical resistance in Season 2, right? Soul Drainers, crossbow auto mods. And now we have this. Very cool. Strength, dex, vitality. All the stats that I want. Now here's the issue with minus 30 energy. Let's talk about minus 30 energy. Fun fact, if you have 0 energy, you have 0 mana. Unless, and obviously like, a torch gives energy. If I don't have a torch and I'm wearing this helmet, I have 0 mana. So until I own a torch on this build, I cannot use this helmet unless I have flat plus 2 mana from a source. You would need to have about 30 in energy just to use it before you have a torch. Think about that requirement. That is a very interesting requirement on a piece of gear, unless the rest of your gear can support the piece, because this is supposed to go on to a physical build. This is supposed to go on me. This is supposed to go onto my character, right? 10 lifesteal, minus 15 enemy physical res, strength, dex, vitality. This is built for a Boazon. This is built for a Fury Druid. This is built for a Frenzy Barb. This is built for a physical Zealer. Minus 30 energy is an incredibly interesting balance point. Now, the other thing that you can point out is that this is literally just a bundle of stats. This is not plus to skills. This isn't really giving you access to auxiliary stats. It's not giving you access to some niche or unique stat. It's a bundle of stats. It says you steal life, you hit harder, you have more life, you do more damage. There are a lot of helmets in this slot that do similar things, but they typically do more powerful things, but not as many, right? This doesn't say all res. This doesn't say plus to skill. Instead, you get minus enemy physical resistance. It's very interesting. It's not automatic. This doesn't automatically replace anything, right? What do you want? Do you want, I assume, but imagine Soul Drainers and this and Stone Crusher. Now you have what? You have minus 25, you have like minus 50 enemy physical res? That's big. Because physical damage reduction decreases your crushing blow damage. So the more physical damage reduction that you can remove, the faster you hit that 65% breakpoint. Interesting? I think this is the most interesting item here. I think of the three we've seen so far, this is the most interesting item. I give this a 5 out of 5 for interesting. Balance, 5 out of 5. I really don't think that this automatically pushes out every other physical damage build helmet, and I also don't think that it's better than half of them, but it's very good, and it gives you a lot of availability to good stats that you otherwise can't get. And then viability, 5 out of 5. So I think this is a very, very interesting point. Obviously, also the helmet is beautiful. I think this is another D1. This is a Diablo 1 graphic, right? Overlord's helm, also very cool name. On the giant conch, which is probably the weirdest set, or the weirdest base item. We have Aidan's Scar. These are assassin claws. So they roll 285 to 325 on the base damage, 118 strength and dex, pretty par for the course. Base weapon speed 0, so these are scissors Sueya. Level 85 required. So they start off indestructible. 30% chance to cast amplified damage on striking is huge, especially with whirlwind changes. 3 to 4 shadow disciplines, so, you know, RIP to shadow killers. 40 IS, 480 ED minimum damage. Big attack rating based on character level, minus 22 vitality. I will say, I think this item is a little bit less interesting. I think it's just very powerful. 30% chance to cast amplified damage on Tiger Strike, Martial Arts, and on Whirlwind is huge now that Whirlwind has chance to cast on it. That means every Whirlwind and every 3 Tiger Strikes, you're basically going to cast amplified damage. With a massive ED on it, massive increased attack speed, plus to minimum damage. The reason why I'll back up and say these are interesting to a degree is because other than like a very powerful crafted blood claw, these are finally a comparably high damage claw that you could wear. And what's cool about it is that you really wouldn't wear 2 of these, I don't think. Let's think about all the different builds. Martial Arts, you wouldn't wear 2 of these because you only attack with 1 claw. Whirlwind, you have to be using the claw that gives you access to Whirlwind. And even though it's plus 4 to Shadow Disciplines, I would rather have Shadow Killers in my secondary slot if I were to go for max Shadow Disciplines on claws. I don't even think I really would. I think this claw lets you go Claw Shield or Martial Arts. It has such high damage that you get to run an elemental martial arts claw sin and also have enough survivability from your base claw. That's a huge benefit as well. We can talk about Blade Fury. This would be awesome for Blade Fury. The IS is really nice, huge damage. Amp on striking. Amp on striking is huge. So other than a trapper, you can use this on every other assassin build, and it opens up a much more conventional weapon shield build with claws, on the offhand or on the swap for pre-buffing and things like that. And even if you do go to claw, this is still your primary damage dealer. It's, I think, strictly better than all other claw options for Whirlwind. That's one of the things I don't like about it. I cannot see a Whirlwind assassin where you're not using this claw. And if that is the case, the original statement of these items are going to be powerful, but not necessarily best in slot, which I do think we have as a quote, I don't necessarily agree with that assessment of this item. So for that, it loses a little bit of interesting. It's basically just all good. Then you have minus 22 vitality. Minus 22 vitality isn't as bad as the minus 30 energy in my mind. Yeah, minus vitality on hardcore, sure. But if you're building an actual melee assassin, you're going to have points in vitality. You just are, especially if you end up going, shield claw. You're going to have survivability. I really don't think that the minus 22 vitality is enough of a detriment to not make this best in slot on Tiger Strike, to not make it best in slot in Whirlwind, and to not be one of the best contenders for a martial arts assassin that relies on the damage here for consistent survivability through leech. So, interesting. I give it a 2 on the interesting scale. I don't really think it's like an interesting piece that makes me wonder, where can I fit it in? What can I use this on? Would I use this or would I use something else? It doesn't really give me very many itemization choices. Balance? A 4. As far as the item goes, the item itself is balanced. It's just strictly better than anything else in a slot, so I don't think that makes it incredibly balanced against the field for every build. Viability 5 out of 5. If you got this, you would use it on a build that cares to attack with a claw, right? Like, it is a good weapon. I will say in the grand scheme of items, that's why you get a balance of 4. Because in the grand scheme of items, you finally have a claw that's comparable to the damage output of other weapon bases. It is incredibly powerful and compares to other incredibly powerful unique weapons in other slots. And then we have the last item, which is, what do we actually have here? We have Hadriel's Hand. It's a 200 to 370 one-handed conquest sword, 142 strength requirement, 112 dex requirement, level 85 required, base weapon 0. This is an indestructible 30 IAS 500 ED weapon that says plus 50 to maximum damage, 500 to 850 fire damage, so huge elemental damage, 25% chance to cast level 20 lower resistance on striking, and then plus to dex. What would you use this on? Now, I think there's something that people aren't thinking about. So Tesladon, for sure. Fury Druid, I think you can make a really good argument for that. Blade Fury Assassin, getting lower res on your Blade Fury? Ooh, 500 ED plus 50 max damage, you now leech. That's what happens. You leech now. You leech. This says you leech now. This says you have splash. This says you get survivability. Yeah, a quarter of the time casting lower res is huge. Group play, this is also huge. You don't have to use Pus Spitter on an Act 1 mercenary. I think this item, when you first look at it, is like fire damage and ED. Oh, and then lower res, what a meme. But you have to remember that you get to stack skills that swing on this. Even just getting level 20 lower res for your Venom Blade Fury Assassin is huge. This item is very good and helps to enable some builds that really don't have a weapon that's good enough for them to actually make the build good. So it helps to enable builds, and I like that. Interest, 1 out of 5, 5. I think I already knew, like, obviously I've already read all of these. Balance, 3 out of 5. It has no downside. It's just fire. Like, no pun intended. It's just straight fire. Everything about it's good. It's just great all the way up. There's no downside to this weapon. I can't see a single downside to this weapon. It's good in solo play. It's good on meme builds. It's good on strong builds. It's good in group play. I think you could do a lot to bring this item more into balance without killing its identity and still have it be viable. Viability, 10 out of 5. 10 out of 5. The only reason why interest isn't 10 out of 5 is because it is just a big sword that says I hit you real big. But it does have interesting aspects to it. Viability, 10 out of 5. I would use this on every fucking build. Yep, so it's not a rune word, so you get to put facets into it. This thing's bananas. It's absolutely bananas. You don't even only put it onto a fire build. You put it onto any build that does elemental damage and is seeking to have non-physical damage sources to kill physical immunes. And then you have lower res. 10 out of 5. 10 out of 5, ridiculously strong. You use this on any character that swings a weapon, you could use this on. I think you could take almost any build that swings a weapon, put this on it, and it will perform to a competitive level.